Good morning, everybody. Sammy, United People's TV, the international break is still on. We're in the second week. We can see the end of it just about Brentford on Saturday. We're looking forward to it and nervous about it in equal measure, given how Manchester United have been playing this season. But it's a Monday. We're going to do a full roundup of the weekend. Internationals, we'll speak about Bruno, we'll speak about Maxi Oyedele, we'll speak about Angel Gomez, we'll speak about Alvaro Fernandez and a cheeky release clause, according to reports from, buyback clause, according to reports from Portugal. And then the main focus of today's show, a little bit later will be about Erik Ten Hag. It kind of feels like business as usual. Last week was a really, really strange week around the Ten Hag situation, the board meeting in London. We'll speak about that a little bit later. And also Benny McCarthy's interview. And anybody, if you think I've missed some news and you want me to speak about it, you fire it in the comments and I will try and answer as many of your questions as I possibly can. And we have a decent weekend. I went for a walk this morning. It is particularly moist out there. I'd say level 10 on the moist scale. I got soaked. Even though I had a brolly. Still got drenched. It was a good weekend, though. It was a good weekend. Good morning to you, Anuj, Carl. Good morning to both of you. Alex, you're there as well. Josh. Akash, good morning to you. Barry Waters. We've got Jordan. Neil, Chris. We've got Stephanie. We've got Teresa. We've got Vinny. And on Facebook, we've got Yusuf. We've got Barney Boyce. It's a great name, Barney Boyce. Andy, Wazzy. And we've got Matthew Bartram. Good morning to all of you. Alex, thanks for asking, mate. How's the ankle? My ankle is... You know what I realised, right? Little boring thing to tell you at the start of the show. So I had the ankle surgery back in February, right? So it's like, I think it's 8 months ago, today even, that I had the surgery. And I realised last week, the week before, because I was back in the gym, now that the ankle's sort of recovered, to a certain degree, it's not perfect yet, but the pain's kind of gone for now. I've realised that my Achilles has just disappeared. So I've now got to start an Achilles rehab that will probably take 3-4 months, because I still can't jog. I can't put power through my ankle because my Achilles is too weak. My calf is too weak. So not only have you got to do the rehab is nuts. People look after your body. I mean, not that I didn't look after my body. It wasn't my choice. I had to have the surgery. But boy, you will get frustrated if you ever get into a situation where you can't do things. That's what I've been doing. Anyway, so now I'm on an Achilles rehab now that I've done the ankle. Brilliant. Fantastic news. Anyway, let's dive into the news. As always, please fire any comments, any questions, and I will try and get you involved where I can. Now, little lesson to everybody. You know how annoyed I get with stories that are taken and used as headlines where they just aren't stories. Right? And a lot of the times, it's just legitimately made up. Right? Case in point here. An aggregator of United news on Twitter. Christian Eriksen has confirmed that he will leave Manchester United at the end of the season. Huge news. Should probably do a video on it. Until the author of the actual story says it's just not true. It's simply false. And it is definitely one part of a consequence of social media that I despise. It's how easy it is for fake crap to spread and how much people consume it and share it just without verifying, without checking it. That's something I keep saying to everyone. Don't believe anything you read on the internet, anywhere. Just try and corroborate it. Try and find somewhere else saying the same thing first. If you can find two places, different places, saying something, the odds of it being correct are significantly more than if one outlet or one person is saying it. And that can apply to anything you do in life, right? Not just Manchester United news. But it pisses me off because I just see more and more and more of it. And I try my hardest to avoid that on this channel. And sometimes there's nothing to speak about. So sometimes you don't do a show. But it's better than just feeding. Just better than just feeding. Gobble, gobble, gobble. Anyway, let's run through the news. In internationals, Angel Gomez yesterday started again for England. They won, what was it, 3-1? I mean, Lee Carsley's not going to become England manager. I think he even said it himself. Yes, he goes, well, no, I think to be the England boss, you need to be world class and you need to have won trophies. So I'm not quite there yet. I was like, well, okay, fair enough. So Lee Carsley's not going to be England manager. Therefore, Angel Gomez is going to have to work his way into another England team under a different manager. Lee Carsley was the under-21s boss when Angel Gomez was fantastic and they won the Euros. And that's why Lee Carsley brought him in. But did you see that? Did you see that assist from him yesterday? In that position there, to get that assist across and through that gap there, really was like a top-tier pass. Absolutely top-tier pass from Angel Gomez. And just the sort of deftest of touch. And obviously Grealish scored. See someone down there talking about Thomas Tuchel and England, and it's just like, honestly, question down here, right? Because I'll speak about just the whispers a little bit later. Do any of you really have the energy to be arguing and talking about managers and anything to do with it? Because it is abundantly obvious that, well, it is now anyway. I'd be amazed and shocked in the wrong way if at some point this week we get a statement from INEOS that Erik Ten Hag is leaving Manchester United. I'd be like, but if that was going to be your choice, why on earth didn't you make that 4 or 5 days ago? Right? That would be my first thing. So this idea of people still having energy to argue about managers is like, oh my God, man. Where'd you get it from? Where do you get it from? Yeah, Angel Gomez is an excellent ball retention expert. Maybe a little bit to be calling him an expert. But he's available on a free transfer in the summer. And I'm not just linking him to United. Oh, it was free transfer. Great. Come back to Carrington. Great. But Eriksen's going to be leaving on a free, probably. Eriksen out and Angel Gomez in on a free. Am I upset about that? No. Do I think our squad's better off as a consequence? Yes. Don't know whether it will happen or not, but it's going to be one to watch for sure. And Manchester United will not be the only club. That being said, we need physicality in midfield, and bringing Angel Gomez in isn't going to be the solver to that, considering he's about 2'3". And yesterday, we're talking about the... I'm going to do a video on this today, actually. And I'll tell you exactly what it is in a minute. But Maxi Oyedele, playing for Poland, got his first call-up, I think, to the Polish first-team squad, having moved out to, is it Legia Warsaw, I think he moved to? And played against Bruno, obviously Portugal against Poland, and swapped shirts with Bruno after the game. And Bruno said this, which I thought was class. Because we had, itchy neck. Because we had Toby Collier coming through. Oh, by the way, Akash, no, there's no question that Angel Gomez will come back to United. I think he's already said that. There are zero questions as to whether or not he would want to come back to United. It's whether or not Man United want to bring him back. In my opinion, anyway. But Oyedele, because we had Collier coming through, I don't think the pathway was quite there for him. So it's good to see him thriving and good to see him shining even on the international stage with Poland. And I wanted to... This is what my lunchtime video is going to be on today. I did a deep dive into this during the international break. And I said Manchester United's switch in focus on transfers to signing younger players, in my opinion, that's going to be like the core driver and the core energy towards United actually building a top quality squad again. And I want to follow up on that today after this from Fabrizio saying that INEOS want to build something for the future in terms of signing players like Chido Obi Martin, 16 from Arsenal, like Sekou Kone, 18 from, was it Gidars FC in Mali, I think it was? For Manchester United to build the squad of the future, Manchester United have to build a squad of, for now, with the academy, both domestically and with foreign talents like Kone. And yeah, it's kind of cool just to have a little conversation here this morning about Angel Gomez from our academy, about Maxi Oyedele from our academy, and maybe about players who are going to be coming through from the future. And in my opinion, I think it's absolutely, as I said, at the core of how United build a squad that can genuinely compete. And it will take time. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again now, and I'll keep saying this. You know how when we reached what we felt like was towards the end under previous managers, and we looked at our squad, we were like, gone, 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 gone. Not good enough. Not good enough. Not good enough. Need a centre forward, 2 central midfielders, 2 centre backs. I don't look at that. I don't look at our squad and go, yep, all of you need to go. I look at the squad and go, I genuinely think that's actually quite a good squad. I don't think it's perfect by any stretch of imagination. I still think there's a big revamp that has to happen in midfield. Casemiro and Eriksen, both of those gone without question to be replaced. And there's question marks about lots of other positions as well. But I think the squad overall is a lot stronger than our current performances indicate. So I don't think it's a huge overhaul needed, but just more. I told you, again, this is just a personal opinion and theory. I think for any club to compete in the Premier League at the highest level and really genuinely have an ability to challenge for the league title, you need to have 3 summers in a row where you nail it. 3 really strong summers where you build on a squad. I think Man United had a good summer. Could have been better, sure. Anyway, let's speak about Bruno. Bruno again and I'll speak about left back next, by the way. Speak about Alvaro Fernandez. But Bruno, and it's never a surprise to see Bruno playing well for Portugal, is it? I'm pretty sure he does it like every single game. Maybe not every single game. Of course, nobody's perfect. But the majority of games, Bruno Fernandes is good for Portugal. And it just makes you look at Manchester United and go, where's the disconnect there? Now, I thought this was quite an interesting little comment from Bruno. He's talking about how, look, when he's with his international team, he feels increasingly good. He can enjoy his football due to the dynamics and the quality. I don't know whether that's a point towards, I don't have that at Manchester United. I don't really think it is. But Bruno correctly, and this is the same logic I had with Harry Maguire, so I would be a hypocrite to suggest otherwise. As captain of Manchester United, you should be scrutinised more than the average player. All right? You are the captain of the club. And when Bruno came in, right, rewind to the very beginning, do you remember how crap we were? Like how we were bottom of the barrel, scraping it. And Bruno came in and just like lifted everybody up on his own, pretty much. So he is capable of, in teams that aren't quite cohesive, in teams that aren't quite doing it, to almost pull people up himself. Tactics seem to have a big role. Dudley, you're saying that, and Tony as well. I think, well, partly it's definitely self-confidence now. Like you saw that, who was it against? Was it Spurs? When a ball came to, no, it wasn't Spurs, it wasn't on in the second half. I can't remember what game it was. It's like a shot came to Bruno. It might have been 20, actually, on the edge of the box. And he just, first time, whipped it. And it went like 2 inches over the bar. And he just kind of like dropped to his knees. And he's just like, what have I got to do? And I think, was it 20 where he crashed a free kick against the bar as well? Bruno's not a player I've ever really say that is lacking confidence. But I think just right now, Bruno is the exact player who can almost try too much and hinder his own game. Chaos with a comment there, which I think is a conversation to be had, if I'm honest. You're saying Bruno and Xerxes cannot play together. I don't know whether it's Bruno and Xerxes cannot play together, but from what we have seen of Xerxes so far and what we knew of Xerxes, all right, when he came in, and this is probably why so many of you felt that he wasn't the right signing to bring in as an alternative to Rasmus Højlund, and I kind of understand half of that. But Xerxes is a 9.5. He's not a striker. He's not a number 10. He loves to operate on the edge of the box. That's his best position. Saw some of that. I think he'll be starting again for the Netherlands tonight. Are they playing Germany? I think so. Animal, you're saying play Bruno deeper. If I'm going to say the weakness of Bruno's game, it's when he's closer to his own goal. I don't want to. The solution is not bringing Bruno closer and deeper into midfield. Maybe it is a switch in style. Maybe it is a switch in formation. Do you make it see United? Because in theory, you could see United dropping the width, right? Drop the inverted fullback and go to a 4-2-2 system. Randomly, I'll show you this. Because I think I might do this later in the week. You know, Gary Neville said that he would like to see United play with a back three. I don't know whether that would ever happen, if I'm being totally honest. But, 1 second here. Let me remove all these. Have I got this saved? I think I do. Right, there you go. Let me show you this. United have used this formation a lot this season, right? 4-2-4. If we haven't used the 4-2-4, we've dropped it into something like that, like a 4-3-3. And the width's been coming from Ahmad and Garnacho because Dalot's always been inverting. It's just not worked. You could, in theory, see this, right? Which is a very narrow formation. And then you actually allow the fullbacks to offer that sort of width. And therefore, you can get Bruno and Xerxes in the game together. You can get probably Højlund, the Garnacho. I don't really know who else plays up front. But the 4-2-2 would work if could work, in theory, if Ten Hag gave up on the inverted fullback and said to Dalot, Mazraoui, you're now proper fullbacks, all right? Get forward. You need to offer the width, okay? Cover back in position. Anytime they went forward up here, you would see Manchester United drop into that shape. Martinez would drop wide. De Ligt would drop wide. One of the midfielders would drop in and become the third centre-back, and then you go have Eriksen there. So in possession going forward, that's what you would look like. You'd have De Ligt, but therefore you need De Ligt to be able to defend in the channels. You need Martinez to be able to defend one-on-one in the channels in case you get caught on the overlap, which might not happen. So I think this is a conversation to be had as to whether or not United could do that. Switch to a 4-2-2. I think they could. I actually think tactically there's definitely got to be some switch-ups going, man. There has to be some switch-ups. Let me see what he's saying down here. 4-4-2 diamond like prime Juve. I can't remember that. Peter saying Ten Hag doesn't changes a formation to accommodate his better players. I mean, he's done some tweaks, but it's just not really worked this season. I'll speak about tactics a little bit later in the week. To start this week, I want to speak about the academy and the strategy I think is absolutely the core of it, and I think we're seeing the start of it and already have this summer. But also, I want to speak about this man here, right? Because, Dudley, you're not very happy with that system. It's a conversation. But by the way, Bryn, I completely agree with you. That formation does need Lenny Yoro to work. You need somebody who really can cover those channels on their own. I'm not saying that that's going to work right now, right? But just it's one to watch. That system is kind of how I think you could get Bruno and Xerxes in the same 11, but then you cause other problems defensively. All right. But anyway, Alvaro Fernandez. I don't think there's any. I'm going to take us back to the summer here, ladies and gents. All right. Jeez. The board is back. My God. Just remember how exhausting the summer was. And on the right-hand side, you can see Alvaro Fernandez is there. You can see Cambuela is underpriced as well. Pellistri, that feels pretty cheap too. We don't know how much Oyedele went to Legia Warsaw for. Van de Beek was underpriced, but we're not going to get him back. Anyway. People were probably more annoyed about Alvaro Fernandez and him being sold for, what, 5-6 million? As they were with any other player. Because of our left back issues, first of all. Second of all, that's just way too cheap. Now, there's interesting reports coming out from Portugal this morning, covered by Sport Witness, all right? In Record, which is a Portuguese outlet. And they are reporting that Alvaro Fernandez has got a €50 million buyout clause. That's the contract he signed with Benfica. However, Manchester United have got a buyback clause of only €20 million. And that's valid until 2026. This is coming out from Portugal, all right? So we don't know whether this is completely gospel, But it just raises, in my opinion, an interesting concept of potentially what INEOS have been doing, right? Alvaro Fernandez, when he left, okay, was a player who was a real prospect. And he could have been given a chance at Manchester United. It would have been a risk, sure, but yeah, it's a risk with any player you bring through. And it may well have worked, but it might not have, right? And that's by the by. That's all hypothetical. What has actually happened is he went out on loan to Granada and he improved as a player. He went out on loan to Benfica and he improved as a player. He's been signed by Benfica and he's really establishing himself now this season in the Champions League and the Portuguese League as a very good left back. So he has developed massively. So hypothetically, could it be that INEOS have decided with Alvaro Fernandez, with Willy Cambuala, that, yeah, they can leave for, say, 5-6 million, but only if we've got the ability to buy him back for really cheap in the next 2 years if we want him to. If he really develops in the next 2 years because of us allowing him to leave, and then we sign him back for 20 million euros, I doubt there would be one United fan who would complain if Alvaro Fernandez came back for 20 million euros. And I think the point I'm trying to make here is, would Alvaro Fernandez be the player he is now had he stayed at Manchester United? Well, you might say yes, because we've been crying out for a left back. And I think the left back is the left back position, I think, has just been a bit of a clusterfuck by anybody involved. Be it Manchester United's medical staff, be it Erik Ten Hag, be it, Jason Wilcox wasn't in at that point in time, but any sort of leadership. The whole left back situation has been totally ballsed up. Stephanie's saying, did we let him leave because the club preferred Amas? No, I personally don't think Manchester United would have been able to keep Alvaro Fernandez happy, who was, he had the opportunity to join Benfica and be a starter for them and just be third choice at Manchester United behind, on paper, Luke Shaw and Tyrone Malacia, neither of which have really played this season. Now, and look, you're saying realistically right now, coming back to us would be considered a step backwards. Playing for Manchester United will never be a step backwards for 99% of players. Even if Manchester United are not right at the top, this is Manchester United we are talking about. All right? So it doesn't matter if we are where we are right now. It wouldn't in any way, shape or form be a step backwards. Maybe in terms of the ability to compete for a trophy, if that's what you're measuring it by. But no, not in any way, shape or form. And Alvaro Fernandez would no doubt love to be United. I question whether that would happen under Erik Ten Hag, because I imagine there's probably a little bit of faith and trust lost between the two, because Erik Ten Hag didn't put the faith in Alvaro Fernandez. But I don't know, it's an interesting concept, I think. The idea that these really cheap sales from United, Zidane Iqbal for $1 million, Alvaro Fernandez for 6 mil, Willy Cambuala for 4-5 mil. They're all really cheap. But if Man United, as part of those deals, have added buyback clauses that are as cheap as that, 20 million euros, and those players go out and develop for 12, 14 months and come back to the club significantly better, may well work out in the goodness of time. Don't know. It's an interesting one. Let me see what you're saying down here. Alvaro and Amas would be a good partnership. We can only have one left back, so I don't think that would work. S saying Amas would play better at left back than Diogo Dalot. I don't think he would. But I want to see Harry Amas given the opportunities. I think Erik Ten Hag has got to take some risks now, because I think his safe option was what we saw against Villa. And that was crap. What What's going on down here? We need to ask if he's short-term. It's going to be an interesting one. Let's see if this is something that United explore. If it's 20 million euros, kind of be surprised if they didn't. But what's going on with Harry Mass? If you then sign, and then there's going to be people that are annoyed about that. If you then re-sign Alvaro Fernandez, then you're blocking Harry Mass coming through. It's like, it's almost hilarious. No, not really in a funny way, but how many options you can talk about with United at left back. And just we don't have a bloody left back. You've got Malacia and Luke Shaw, and you've got Harry Mass coming through. And maybe Alvaro Fernandez could come back. And we've got Diogo Dalot playing left back. Oh, brilliant. Fantastic news. Anyway, I did this video on Saturday morning. And I covered Benny McCarthy. He did like a 55-minute interview on this podcast with Super Sports, speaking about loads of stuff. And part of it was he spoke about Erik Ten Hag, spoke about Manchester United. And if you haven't watched it, go and give it a listen. Because it was the main point that I took from it was like how confused Benny McCarthy was when he was explaining, like, these players, they train so well. Like, they are mustard. They are top tier. They are elite level quality. Everything we see in training. You can't question it. You can't fault it. And then the match day comes. And it all goes out the window. And as a coach, Benny McCarthy was there going, you can't make sense of it. And if the coaches can't make sense of it, I don't know. I personally feel that there has to be a disconnect in the communication between what Ten Hag is asking them to do on the training pitch to what happens in real time. Now, I think I've said this before, but I think Ten Hag's system is designed to be fluid, right? Sometimes you get Dalot at left back, but next time it will be Eriksen there and Dalot in midfield. And then next time it will be Mainu in Dalot's position and Eriksen in Mainu's position. And players switch around. And it's kind of confusing to watch as a fan, let alone be a player. And in real time, in that environment in the UK, the players don't seem to be able to execute it. Which is why I keep saying about Ten Hag needing to simplify his tactics. Dropping the inverted fullback of Dalot against Villa was one reason why we were better in defence. Abby, you're talking about mentality. We know full well that mentality is a big, big problem. Dudley is saying it's not entirely on the manager. Of course it isn't. And I've said this before. Anybody who honestly can try and argue with chest that, oh, this is all Erik Ten Hag's fault. If he leaves, all our problems will go. You're off your chops. If you're going to sit here and say Erik Ten Hag isn't at fault at all, it's all on the players. And if we just replace the whole squad and then Erik Ten Hag will win the treble, you're also off your chops. There's problems in the communication from Ten Hag. There's problems in the execution of the tactics from the players. There are still disconnects. And that's down to Jason Wilcox to identify and resolve. It's frustrating. But yeah, I thought it was just particularly worrying to hear that from the mouth of Benny McCarthy, who's been a coach, been at that training ground for 2 years. And even he says, like, it just didn't make any sense. Training did not match up to what we saw on the pitch. And that's something that Erik Ten Hag has never been able to properly fix. And quite a few of you are talking about cultural problems, the culture of Manchester United. Jeez. It does still feel just pure instinct, just pure opinion. But it does still feel like there's just something almost intangible, almost like that you can't put your finger on at Manchester United that just contributes to this. I don't know, the players just being swallowed up by the occasion on match day. Yeah, and I think a lack of football IQ is definitely not a lack of, but I'd love our team to have more football IQ, to be able to know in real time the right decisions to make, the right thing to do before the ball is at your feet. You're already thinking, you already know what the next pass is. You already know where you need to be. That so many of you can throw in points that I would agree with. So many of you. And look, it's 14th of October. Last Monday, we had our live show after the Villa game, and I just didn't see how that Villa game, and I remember that video I decided not to publish on from Gary Neville, and I was like, I completely disagree with that Villa game released some pressure and sort of gave Erik Ten Hag more time, because I don't think playing like Louis van Gaal is a performance that would change the mind of anybody at INEOS. But they had the meeting on Tuesday in London, and not a word has been said, right? Fabrizio, I think, tweeted this on the 11th, saying that Ten Hag, this is the thing I'm questioning, I'm confused about. So INEOS didn't speak to Erik at all. I can understand if there's no conversation coming out in the public, but I would have imagined that INEOS would have spoken to Erik. Maybe not. But obviously, we've seen tons of nonsense, and I've not done one video about it all. Man United are approaching Sebastian Hoeneß. Oh, Man United are approaching Edin Terzic. Who was it? We've had Gareth Southgate conversations, Thomas Tuchel conversations. Someone just mentioned Eddie Howe in the comments. I don't know what other managers have been thrown into the mix. And it's all just people being opportunistic and throwing random names in there. Right now, INEOS are sticking with Erik Ten Hag. And I think my original instinct of thinking that Erik Ten Hag will be given until the November international break to show that development and progress is there is probably what he's going to be getting. And this is where I want to have a conversation with you this morning, because this is going to be a video I do tomorrow, right? This. If Erik is being given a chance, the next 7 games, because hand on heart, like, I will be amazed if the next 7 games are a continuation of what we've seen in the last 7 games, if Erik Ten Hag isn't then sacked. And again, I'll say this to a lot. I think if Erik Ten Hag was sacked in this international break, I think there would have been part of me that felt that was justified. There would have been part of me that would be fearful about what comes next and the cycle repeating. Yeah, sure. But I couldn't really argue with part of it being justified. And I think if you're really if you can't see that, then fair, right? That's your opinion. I'm just trying to explain to you mine. But I want you to fire these into the comments, right? Because I don't see Erik Ten Hag being given the opportunity to go into December unless there is genuine progress in these next 7 games. Lebo gang, Sam, you're no different to the Ten Hag outers now. All right, Lebo, cool. You enjoyed just having very low-level conversation. And if you want to come in here with an actual comment, if you want to come in here and actually have a chat and maybe contribute, give me a non-negotiable of improvement. Because if I'm INEOS, I'm not a whole business. If I'm Jason Wilcox and I'm going, right, okay, well, if Erik's going to get this opportunity of next 7 games, there's things that we are going to have to see, like things that we needed to see yesterday that we haven't seen. But if he's going to be given the next 7 games to prove that, what would you say are the non-negotiables of improvement? Lebo gang, if you want to contribute, you can pop one in there, or you can just spout nonsense. That's up to you, buddy. All right? You enjoy yourself on the internet. Robert, I think that's pretty fair. Let's go full screen on that one. Ooh. Why has that gone black? Proper patterns of play. I think that's fair. That's why the the drop-off from that Palace first half was so frustrating for me because I was like, my God, there it is. And maybe that was just a system which only worked in that one game against Palace. Let me see what you're saying down here in the comments. Aiden, well, you know, I suppose that should be number one, really. Results. Brian, you said the same thing. Of course, 7 wins. 7 wins and no one's going to be saying anything, right? What are we saying down here? Stronger mentality. So I don't think stronger mentality, scoring goals. I suppose scoring goals is one. I don't really think that's particularly on Erik Ten Hag, though, if I'm being totally honest. We've had enough chances to score goals. I think that's more down to the individuals rather than Erik Ten Hag himself. Prepare for individual games. No more rotation. It's results otherwise. Easily beaten. So I'm reading more down here. Now, Liam, I do agree with that, right? That's definitely going to be one of mine. Now, that does not mean that Manchester United should simply play in a low block and hit on the counter-attack here or there. Simplify tactics. Drop the inverted fullback. You don't ask your midfielders to... Don't have a different system for build-up and a different system for in and possession and a different system for out of possession and a different position where you need to be when you have the ball and when you don't have the ball. And then if somebody else has the ball, then you need to go over to this side. It feels like just overcomplicating it. I think that's what's happened with a few of just Manchester United's tactics and approaches. And why sometimes when it simplifies, it looks just like the players know, like the... I don't know what they're doing. Probably because they do, by comparison. Jibak, you're saying, send a super chat, what you said. Sam, at what point do you think the ask from the new manager changes from finishing in a European spot to keeping us in the top 10 or away from relegation? As soon as that conversation changes, then Erik Ten Hag, I don't think has a job anymore. If any Manchester United manager is ever, the challenge is to keep us in the top 10 or away from relegation, then well, that's why results are so important. Look, right? 3 wins in a row in the league. Let's actually look at our next 7 games. I've already ran through this, but it's just interesting to follow on now that we've just got those non-negotiables up. We've got Brentford, and then I think we've got Fenerbahce away. Yeah. Then we've got West Ham away. All right, here we go. Brentford at home. 5 days later, we got Fenerbahce away. 3 days later, we got West Ham away. All right. 3 days later, we've got Leicester in the League Cup rotation. 4 days later, we've got Chelsea at home in the league, which would be a big game. Then we've got PAOK 4 days later at home in the Europa League. And then we've got Leicester at home in the league. And that's going to be the international break. Hardest game there on paper, you're probably looking at Chelsea at home. I think that'll be a big measure for United, won't it? But these games here, Brentford have had an up and down season. They really have. They've been scoring in the first bloody minute every single game. You'd hope that United would be able to beat Brentford at home, but, you know, anything goes. Fenerbahce away. I mean, just going to have to pray there, really. If Erik Ten Hag goes away to Fenerbahce and we play the same way that we played against Porto, we play the same way that we played away at home to Galatasaray, to Copenhagen, to whoever bloody else we played in European football, and we just get split open, that will not help in any way, shape or form. Erik Ten Hag has to make these games feel different to what we've seen. There has to be tweaks in tactics. As someone said down there has to be a simplification of tactics. Yeah, Brentford's not going to be an easy game. There are no easy games in football anymore. Not for Manchester United. Yeah, Breen, I don't want Fenerbahce away to be entertaining. I'd rather it be boring as hell. And United win 1-0. It's almost like United gets swept away in the occasion. It's almost like United play a game like a bloody away fan who's been there drinking since 9 a.m. and just full tilt. It's like going all in on the first hand. That's how United play away from home in European football. Of course, it's Mourinho. Fred's there. They've got a decent squad. And it's an atmosphere that'll be tasty. We were 2-0 up against Galatasaray away from home. Do you remember how good that was? And then it all collapsed. I'm not going to speak about what happened after that. For Erik, in my opinion, to be in a job at Manchester United in December, there have to be some non-negotiables. Now, I'm going to keep this. I'm going to write this down. And I'm going to put that into my video tomorrow. And I'm going to show you what my 5 are compared to your 5. But I agree with pretty much everything you've said there. And I imagine there'll probably be photos coming out today at some point of Erik Ten Hag back at Carrington. International break. When does it end? I know there's games tonight. I'm guessing there's games tomorrow. Yeah, there's games tomorrow. Shit, there's still games Wednesday. Damn. Ugarte's going to be playing against Ecuador on Wednesday. So he won't be fit for Saturday. Yeah. So Wednesday is when the international... So everybody should be back at Carrington on Thursday, but we play Saturday at 3 p.m. So don't expect Ugarte to be fit for that game. Consistency. Oh, there's loads more things I could add to that list. It's not exhaustive, all right? Erik's going to be back at Carrington. It's business as usual. INEOS have decided, right? He's going to get at least the next 7 games. Now, I don't think he gets past 7 games if we don't see the progress that has been demanded. The progress that a very strong summer, I think, warranted. It wasn't a perfect summer, but I can't remember what I put on record. I went and said, like, somewhere between a 7 or an 8 out of 10 in terms of the summer window, in terms of the signings we made, in terms of how the squad is now, and the players that we sold. So the minimum expectation there is progress from where we were last season. Someone asking that, Akash saying, did I miss the announcement from it? There was no announcement from INEOS, but because there was no announcement, we have to consider it's business as usual. And if, after just waiting a week, it randomly comes out that they're going to sack Erik Ten Hag, I'd be like, well, that's just weird. That's just poor. Swallow, what you're saying down in a super chat, saying, I don't understand why we don't play on the counter-attack. We thrive playing the counter-attack. I don't get the shame of playing that way. And Madrid do it. Man, Madrid are what, 41 unbeaten? You seen that? I might actually watch that Clasico. I've been bored of watching Clasicos for a while. But the 43rd game, which is the record in Spain, is against Barcelona. So that should be a tasty one. I wouldn't say that we don't play on the counter-attack. It's just we don't have that ruthless element. Because to play on the counter-attack, it's going to be a harder finish, really. Because you're playing at pace. You're playing through the lines really quickly. No time to think about it. Almost instinctive. Counter-attacking is instinctive attacking football. Spot the spaces, play it through it, boom. Go and just burst through so that nobody can come back at you. And we're just not being clinical. At all. Richie saying Sam Ragnick said these players lack a tough mentality. Well, you know what he said. The open heart surgery. Nothing of what Ragnick said was wrong. And I'm still so annoyed about that. We hired the perfect man and put him in the wrong job. It's peak Man United. It really, really is. Hired the perfect football director who can actually lead from the top, and we made him our manager. Despite the fact that he hadn't managed a team in like 18 months, 2 years. And that team was toxic. And he was awful as a manager. Really shining now at Austria because he's got a squad that's bought into the Ragnick, because you have to buy into Ragnick's style of play. You can't be a little bit of pregnant. You can't do a little bit of pressing, which is still what United do. Drop the press. Please, Erik. Anyway. I'll run through that in my video tomorrow. Thank you all for tuning, as always. It's been, I think this international break has felt, I would say, probably the most disconnected I think I've seen United fans. Because I can always look at the videos that I do and how many people are watching, and I can understand the trends and how I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp of what United fan sentiment is overall on a grand scale. I can't speak for every United fan. And there's been a massive, massive disconnect from United fans this week. And I think it's because, and I can only speak from my own perspective now, for a lot of it, we didn't know whether Ten Hag was staying. We didn't know whether Ten Hag was leaving. And because we didn't know which way it was going to go, there wasn't really a conversation you could have. Because you didn't know whether to speak about things that needed to be improved or things that were about to change. And you were just, it felt like a week of being stuck in limbo. Now, this week, I'm going to kick back. I'm going to increase the quality of the content. I think last week, I really, really struggled. Simply to have conversations that I thought were worth all of your times. Like, ladies and gents, right? I said this before. I'll say it again. When we are back on top, just make sure you're here because we have, I'm laughing because it's the only way to talk about it. We have been in the swamp for a while. And I thought this season was where we honestly, where it felt justified to think that real progress was coming. And that's what's been so bruising about the start of this season. It really kind of has felt like a continuation of last season when I didn't think it was going to come. And Apner, there's a very fair point down there. It's not just disconnected, Sam. Many fans are tired of incessant fear-mongering on the internet. They choose to avoid it and focus on watching matches for some time now. And I completely understand that. And that's something I will always try and avoid here on United People's TV. It's why I'm investing in stuff like the Beckham documentary. Like that Beckham documentary was watched by hardly anybody compared to a normal video, despite it being probably one of the best, most polished edited videos that we've done, but the quality of a video doesn't matter if people don't want to watch it. And that's a sort of a struggle that I have to sort of do with the content. But I will always try and do content that I think is worthy of your time, is worthy of having a conversation, rather than just shouting. All right? Thank you all for tuning in. I think progress will still come this season, Alex. I do think it will. And I think it has to come in these next 7 games for Erik. I think it's last chance saloon. Personal opinion. All right. Appreciate all of you tuning in as always. Make sure you do drop a like on the video. It does make a big difference. I'll be back here later on today, lunchtime, with my video, kind of around the academy and the transfer shift, which has happened and I think is just so important to bringing United back. And tomorrow we're going to speak about those non-negotiables with Ten Hag. And yeah, let's see what other news comes out. Take it easy, everyone. Have a good day. And it is wet outside, so just stay indoors.